Hello, a community of spouses, families, teenagers. Listen, I'm going to continue on in the continuation of unhealthy sex. And today I want to talk to my teenagers or young adults or, you know, the ones that's getting ready to move over to adulthood and such. I want to talk to y'all for just a minute. I'm not going to keep you long. Just a quick minute. Father God, use me. Help me with these verses to speak to your people and say what it is that you would have me to say. Because I have a teenager, Lord, and I want him to see this video and grab a hold of this. So, I have been talking about unhealthy sex and that the only healthiest slash safest in the sight of God, the right type of sex is between husband and wife in a marriage covenant, man and woman in a marriage covenant. That is God's, has been God's plan for marriage. Now, I used to work in the Sunday school classes, and you know, the Old Testament has a lot going on with sex. They having all kinds of sex and stuff going on in the Old Testament. There's a lot of stuff going on. But from the beginning, sex was originally supposed to be between man and woman, husband and wife. That has been God's plan. I know some of these kings and stuff that had, concubines, and they, had servant girls, and they had more than one wife, and they had a lot of stuff going on. But now, today's time, sex between husband, wife, in a marriage covenant, it is how God will have it to be. That is his will for his people. That has been his plan. So I just kind of want to talk about a little bit of some advantages and some disadvantages of having sex before we get married. Now, I will be the first to say that I did not follow the instructions of this. I had sex before marriage, and I was probably just like you, not thinking nothing of it. Well, today's times is a little different. But I was probably just like you, not really thinking too much about it, not thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. My thing when I was growing up was always, well, I just want to wait till I'm at least 16, because I used to see so many young people that I went to school with becoming pregnant and having kids at a young age. And so I just always felt like, well, if I just wait until I turn at least 16, I should be like in a safe zone. Like 16, you almost grown. So I thought that was a good age to start having sex. And so that's what I did. And, I went on through life. I always had a desire to be married. But I went on through life thinking nothing of it, just thinking this is how it's supposed to go, because this is what I've seen. This is what was around me. This is what was in my environment. This was my normal. My normal was people had sex before they got married. People stayed together, lived together before they got married. This is what people did. Some people stayed together 10, 15, 20 years before they got married or ever got married, but they were still having sex. God is a forgiving God, and he will forgive us, but he do call us to repentance. And so if you are having sex, especially for my teenagers, because I have a teenager, if you are having sex as a teenager, ask God for forgiveness, turn from that. It causes a lot of conflict with your body and soul. And the consequences later is it can go either way. So I want to talk about some advantages of having sex before marriage and living together. One of the obvious ones is, well, we having sex. I'm having sex. I'm doing me. I'm doing what I like to do. I'm enjoying the pleasure of sex, and I'm not married. I have options. I have choices. I can bounce around. So that's a a giver. We together. You're together all the time with that person, and if you are living with a person before marriage, I kind of get to get a feel of this person, see how they are, what they can do. If I'm gonna like this, if I'm not gonna like this. You got two incomes coming in. Both working. We can split everything down the middle, 50-50, that type of thing. Those are just some of the advantages. All right. Some of the disadvantages of having sex before the marriage covenant, which was a biggie for me, you ruin your wedding night. You ruin that moment of intimacy. Oh, it's like, oh, well, we already done did this. Oh, we already done, And that's how people get into more sexual sin, because they start doing other things and trying to be creative. And let's go to this store and buy some of this stuff. And let's go do some of these things. And that you ain't supposed to be doing any of that. So that's one of the main ones. You ruin your wedding night. You thinking that, you kind of like have a heads up on this person. Like, I know everything I need to know about this person. Like, this is the perfect person for me. This is the one. You also ruin the opportunity for God to bless you or send that right person in your life that He has chosen for you. This was a biggie, because if we allow God to order our steps and to send the right person in our life at the right time, not saying everything is going to be perfect, peaches and cream, because life is not peaches and cream. The Bible tells us in John, in this life, we will have tribulation. So not because everything's going to be perfect, so awesome, so great, so whatever. But when God is in the midst of things, even when it's not perfect, there is still a certain kind of peace. There's still a certain kind of calmness. And God has a way for Him to work it out for you. So you opt out the opportunity and the advantage of letting God help you choose your mate, or allowing God to send the right mate to you. So when I was a little girl or teenager, whatever, and growing up in the church, one of the things I used to always remember, like always, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what church I went to, what sermon I was listening to. The only things that always stood out to me in church was sex and marriage, sex and marriage, sex and marriage. Not because I had my mind on sex or even on marriage at that age, but those things always like made my ears go like. And now I understand why, because this is a big deal, people. It's a big deal. So what happens when you have sex before the marriage covenant? You are basically derailing the plans for the future, for your future. You are derailing your plans for the future and what God has for you. Listen, there are 2 wills for your life. Well, 3. There's God's will, there's the enemy's will, and then God, we have our own will. But even with our own will, God has a way of bringing our will around to line up with His. So the evil one has a plan for you, and God has a plan for you. The word tells us in Jeremiah 29:11, for God knows the plans that He has for you. He has a certain plan for you, and the evil one also has a plan for you. His plan comes out of John 10:10, which says, the enemy only comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so that is what the enemy's plan is in your life. If you did not know what the enemy plan is in your life, that is his plan. God's plan is Jeremiah 29:11. The enemy's plan is John 10:10. The enemy only comes to kill, steal, and destroy. He come to entice you. He come to he give you, different pleasures and different things to look forward to, and he leave you out to dry for you to be destroyed or dead. You have sex before marriage. You think you found the perfect person, the perfect mate. You go through life thinking, oh, this is the one, this is it. When we finish school, when we graduate, when we finish college, we're going to, or while we in college, we're going to, roommate together or whatever. You do these things, you get married, and all hell and all his demons show up at your doorstep because they're going to show up. Okay? You derail your future plans and everything that God, because like I just told you, God has a plan for you as well. Everything that God has planned for you now, because pain comes with pleasure. And that's why we need to allow God to give us the desires of our heart. And so when the pain comes, we go after God, seeking after him and want him to help us fix this mess that we have made. God comes in and fixes this mess, and that can take years of repairing. Years of repairing. A lot of adults are reaping, like Galatians tell us, God will not be mocked. We will reap what we sow. A lot of adults are reaping a lot of things from their past, what they're going through now in their present. And so God has to go back and undo everything that you messed up in your past, rewire you, reconstruct, he had to do all this work to get you back on the narrow path and start you down. And sometimes that can take not just days, not just hours, not just minutes, months, years. Years can pass by before God can fix this. But then he sent Tanika to come and tell you that do not have sex before you get married. So I just want to share a few scriptures with you, and you can go back and look at them for yourself. A lot of people don't believe the Bible. Everybody I was home this morning, and I had, I don't have anything against, different religions or whatever. Everybody had their own different religions. Somebody came knocking at my door. I'm not going to say what type of religion it was, but everybody have their own way of looking at, life and what it means. And some people don't believe in God and don't believe in Jesus Christ. And so that's your opinion. I do. Everybody have their opinion of what they believe in and what they don't believe in. I'm not only here to force you to believe in Jesus Christ or God, but there is a God. Jesus is real. God, we have a living God. And his book, his written word is the instructions that we supposed to go by to live in this life. A lot of sayings out there about, is handwritten by man. Man created this book. It is. God has inspired man and has placed man in position to write his living word. The only reason people don't understand the Bible is because people don't read the Bible or have that connect with the Bible and have a full understanding of how God works and a full understanding of how this all goes, how it all goes. And the word tells us in John that God is not flesh. He is spirit. And in order for us to worship him and to get in a place with him, we have to be in spirit with him. And so in order for you to do that, you have to surrender, submit, humble yourself, and get in alignment with him. That's a whole nother story. I go by the Bible. This is how I live my life. It works for me. It keeps me good. So the first verse I want to share with you comes out of 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 3-4. And it says, God's will is for you to be holy. So stay away from all sexual sin. Any sex outside of the marriage covenant is considered sexual sin. So stay away from sexual sin. Then each of you will control his own body and live in holiness and honor. Okay? That's one verse I wanted to share with you. Then the second one I want to share with you comes from out of 1 Corinthians 7. And this is Paul speaking. And Paul says, but I wish everyone... No, I'm sorry. Let's go back to 1 Corinthians 7, verse 1. It said, yes, it is good to abstain from sexual relationships. It is good to abstain from sexual relationships, but because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman should have her own husband. Again, sex is only for the husband and wife covenant. Verses 7. Paul says, but I wish everyone was just single like he was, yet each person has a special gift from God of a kind, which means some have the gift of singleness. Some people are okay being single. Like I started this video off saying that, I always desired to be married. Verse 8. So I say to those who aren't married and to the widows, it's better to stay unmarried just as I am. But if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. All right. And for the ones who think this is just impossible, we cannot do that. Why would God have an option for sex and we can't have sex until we get married? Well, his word tells us in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 12, if you think you are standing strong, 1 Corinthians 13. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. God has a plan for you. It is not his will, it is not his plan for people to have sex. Young adults, teenagers, grown people. It is not his will for us to have sex before marriage. God says the marriage bed between a husband and wife is undefiled. Anything goes in the marriage bed. All right? Because of things, that you did ahead of time, if you have chosen to go this route and have, decided, I'm going to have sex before marriage, this and that. And it happens, I'm not a perfect being. Like I said, I started the video off saying that I also was in an unhealthy sexual situation because I had sex before marriage as well. Okay? But the Bible speaks a lot about us abstaining from sex and keeping our body holy. That our body is is the temple. It's a temple of God. And so we're supposed to keep our body from sexual sin. From sexual sin. Do yourselves a favor and wait. Do yourselves a favor and wait. The things that goes along with having sex before marriage, in the present, it looks like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, this is what people do. Oh, this is the world. The Bible tells us that the world will fade away. This word will fade. I think it's in Psalms. This word will fade away. Okay, but God's word stays the same. His word will not change. His word will not change. But this world that we live in is only temporarily. We are passing through. It is only temporarily. However, wait and let God send or show you the right person for you and allow him to help you handle sex the proper way. I hope for my teenagers, for my ones getting ready for college or, are in college, and even the ones that's already living together will make a conscious decision to turn from their ways and ask God to help them deal with sexual sin. It is not God's will for any man to perish. It is not his will for any of us to perish. His word tells us that people are perishing because of their lack of understanding. Psalms tells us to get understanding and get understanding, get understanding, get understanding. If you are a believer or desire to be a believer or believe believe in the marriage covenant, you desire to be married one day, do yourself a favor. Hold off on sex. Get rid of it. Live pure until that time comes. Live pure. Turn from it. Ask God for forgiveness. Leave it alone. It will save you a lot of headache and suffering later on in your future. So I hope these messages have been a blessing to you. Blessings.